This video is a basic overview of MS Access. So first, when you open MS Access, you will get this home screen. Here I can choose a blank database if I want to work on a blank database and also save it. So unlike many other MS Office programs, MS Access requires us to first save the file on a computer before we can begin to work on it. So unlike Microsoft Word, I can just open a blank file, start working on it, and the end when I close it, it will say, do I want to save this file? But in MS Access, I have to first save the file to my computer, then I can start working on it. So for this, if I want a blank database, click blank database once. You get this options to rename the file and also option to where to see where is it being saved. So as you can see in my it's written in documents folder. It's saving my file in documents folder. But if I want to save it anywhere else, I can choose this folder icon in the right. I can press it and choose a location where I would want to save it instead. So make sure to properly set where is it being saved and the name because later it's very difficult to find a file name if I have not set it. And also remember to not press this option twice. If I press it twice, it will save this file as database tree in this default location without giving me this option. In that case, I will have to go back to this folder, which is the default usual location where it saves and rename it from there. But that could be confusing, especially if you have a lot of databases stored, which each would be database 1, database 2. So it's better click it once, rename it to something meaningful and see where is it being saved so I can easily find the file. So let's say I'm making some kind of database for an organization. So I'm naming it ABC.org. Press create. So now Microsoft Access creates the blank database. A blank database only consists of a single table. And this table by default has one ID column, which is like the serial number. When I add any information in the other columns, it would add 1, 2, 3, 4 like serial numbers. I can delete it if it is not required later too. So let's say I'm making a database for employee details. Now first, if I want to name the table, so I can have multiple tables in a database. By default, it gives me one table when I first open as table 1. So it's better again to rename it to something meaningful. So click on view. In the ribbon above, you will see the view option. Click on design view and it shows a table in which I can set the name of the file, the table. So I can rename it to something meaningful such as let's say employee details if I'm having here. So press OK and it will save it. So now you'll see this table name is employee details. Now I can build on this table. So I would like to add different names of different columns to enter information like employee name, date of joining and various other information. So for this, there are two ways. One is I can edit from here itself, press on the column you will get on the top of the column, you'll get this option. Like for example, if I want employee name, I can press short text, add employee name, and so on. This is one way of doing. But a better way and a more better way of doing this, which has more options, would be going here to the design view, where you can enter different field names. Here it's easier to change details. Like if I want to later change the data type, I can change this too, and it also shows you different options, which I can also edit and various properties, which I will discuss later. So similarly, we can add information like you can add date of joining. Select the different data type here. So in this case, it could be date of joining could be like date and time. Then could be department which the employee is working in. Now here maybe the organization let's say has three departments, finance, HR and marketing. And I want to create a list of it which from which I can choose instead of typing every time the name of a department. I want to create a list like a drop down menu from which I could select the department. For this, use the data type lookup wizard. Press on lookup wizard. It will show you this box from which I can choose. Let's say I want to type the values I want. So here it will go to show you this column. So I can enter finance, then let's say enter marketing, then I enter HR and next. Then if I want to limit to list means I do not want to allow a person entering the database to enter anything apart from these three. I will press limit to list. I can also allow multiple values. If a person could have worked for more than one a department at a time, I could select multiple values, but it is unadvisable usually in a database to allow multiple values. It's better to keep all different information in independent separate columns. So press finish. Now if you go back, it will ask you to save these details. So in department, you would see it's added as drop down box among the values I have selected: finance, marketing, HR. So these I could choose instead of typing, and I cannot enter anything apart from these. So now coming back to the design view, so you can choose this below options too. In the bottom right, you'll see database view and data sheet view and design view instead of this view tab. Both are options available to move in Access. So let's say I want to in here maybe add other details, mobile number, and also usually many databases will have some kind of unique identification which is called a primary key. For example, students in a university are given roll numbers because students could have the similar name, maybe similar date they joined. Again, like if even an employee, more than one employee can have the same name, same date of joining, they could be the same department. Mobile number could be unique, so it's also a candidate that could be considered in some cases. But let's say I want to create some kind of employee code. I gave a unique identification for each employee. So I can make such a thing and to tell Access that this is a unique identifier. It's different for each person or each different for each data in this table. I'll enter primary key here. Right click on here and select primary key. This means each record, each row in a database is called a record. So it means this primary key will be unique for every entry. So here, in fact, if I want to change the order, let's say I want to bring it in the front. So I can just press here and drag it above to bring it above. So by Access by default was making ID the primary key, but I have replaced it by E code. So I can just delete it, the ID column. So I can just click here, right click, right delete. If it's not required, I can just delete it and I can leave the rest of the details as it is. So now this table, I have to just close it and save it. So is required. It has a lot of information now that I can enter. So now there's some also properties that I can set which are available below. So one, for example, let's say employee code is, let's say I want to make it only four letter or four digits. Anything it could have. Text could be both numbers or characters. So like, let's say I want it to be maximum of length of 4. By default, it is 255. So I can select, let's say 4 here, the field size property. Now if I go here, save it. Now you will see if I try to type 1, 2, 3, 4, I can't type beyond this. Even if I'm typing on the keyboard, it will not enter. So the field size property sets how much characters can I enter for a particular data type. Let's say employee code I want it to be 1111 4 times. The next employee, let's say I want 1112. So this is the way it is entered. Now other things also could have similar properties. Let's say mobile number. So mobile number, if I use a text. So let's say I want it to be only number. Naturally, a mobile number can be only a number. So I don't want someone to accidentally enter A, B, C, D here, any letter. They should be able to only enter numbers here. So what I could do, I could for if I want to use a short text as an option only, I could use input mask here to select 0 10 times. So I can enter 0. 0 means I'm telling it a pattern for data. That should be some number. I'm not saying it should be 0. It should be some number only 10 times. So let's say 0 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now if you come here back, see it. And now if I try to enter any letter, it will not be entering even if I type on the keyboard. It will know to expect a number. And if I enter here any other say phone numbers, you can see now it's entering. So if I enter data, it will be only up to 10 digits. Beyond that, it will not allow me to enter data. That's similar to the field size too, which could have also been changed here for this particular setting. But in many cases, it may not also work properly. So for example, if there's some large number then possibly the field size property will not show this kind of option. I will show it later. Also in input mask, I can select different other patterns. Like for example, I want to show dash like 0, let's say this, and I want to show different dashes. I wanted to show 2, then 3, then 2, then 3. I want to divide the data into sets with dashes. Now you can see if I edit this as a pattern, it's divided what I entered in this format. When I enter something new, it will show me this option that will be dividing the data in this pattern. So input mask allows me to set a pattern for data what I can enter in short text 2 or any other data format 2. So this is one thing which is helpful in this. Another useful property could be, for example, the validation rules. Because when we are entering database, all these rules we are setting is because we are not necessarily the person who will also fill data in the database. Many people work on a database. I am creating the database, but different people could actually enter data in it. So I'm making sure they do not make a mistake. Let's say when I'm setting date of joining, let's say this organization which I'm making the database only was formed in 2010. They did not exist before this date. So that means I do not want to allow any person to enter a date of joining before 1st January 2010. So in this case, I can set validation rule here for date and time. When I press on this column, this properties will come. So I can select validation rule as greater or equal to for 1 slash 12, 1 slash 01 for this, for January and 2010. When I move, I press anywhere, so you'll see it adds this hash code. So this is how it's properly formatted. In case I later decide to edit it, make sure not to delete it or it can cause an error. So now I've said this, I can close this. It wants the data may have been it violates because I've not filled it. So always remember as first, do not fill the data before setting these rules as they can cause error. I have just to explain I had entered these information before, but always prefer to set these properties before entering data. Because if some of these data do not follow the rules we set, they can cause some errors. So now let's say I set the date of joining this to 2010. So it will satisfy the rule, it doesn't give a warning. But now let's say I try to set this as 2009. It will give an error. It does that is prohibited by the validation rule. So one thing more I could do, as you can see, this error is quite complicated language. A person filling may not understand what does it mean, what is the problem in it. So for this, I can set what does this error say. So again, go to data of joining in validation text. This is what the error should say. The message should say if someone doesn't satisfy this validation rule. So I can say date of joining must be after 1st Jan 2010. And then close it, it will ask to save it. Now if you see, if I try to change this to 2009, it will give me an error with the words I have chosen, which makes it more clearer to a person filling what are they doing wrong. So I can just change it back to follow the rules. So you can enter different details to anything as it is required here along with whatever relevant details. So now let's say I want to create more tables. The advantage of Microsoft Access is I can create multiple tables and create relationships with them instead of entering all the information in one table. Having all the information in one table will make it very complicated and difficult to use. So let's say if I want to make a record of what all salary details which an employee is paid per month. So let's say I want to create a new table. Go to create, press table, then it will create a new table. By default, again, it's table 1. To rename it, go to design view. It will show table 1. Rename it to such as salary detail. So this is a new table which is created. Now, let's say I want to, I can delete the ID column because I do not need it here. And then I can set maybe salary details could be having for each employee. So employee code, the same which I had set there, which could be E code. It can be a short text. Let's say I want to make sure a person doesn't do mistakes, so I can set field size 4 like I did there. Then I can select maybe it will be month salary paid. Salary will be paid every month. Maybe if the different amount of salary is paid per month, it's not constant. and I want to keep a record of it, I could do this. Month salary paid, and maybe for that basic pay. So this basic pay will naturally be a number. So I can select number. For numbers like salary details or anything which is numbers, it's better to select numbers because then I can do mathematical calculations like statistics for average, even other type of things. I could do if I write L excess, it's a number. Technically, numbers will also work in short text, but it's more correct if we use an appropriate data type. So I could do any find, for example, the mean, average salary paid. I can do it if I set the proper data type. And as you see number, it doesn't give you the option to enter the exact field size. It will give you byte, integer, long integer. As you go from the byte to the ones in the lower side, the lower sides are having much more field size. For example, if I try to enter here with long integer, I try to enter very large number. So let's say starting with 9 to go into a very large number, just entering it. It will give an error that this is not valid because it's larger than field size setting permits. So in that case, I have to set a larger field size that will be to whatever I need. For example, for very large data type, I could use double. So if I set this, I'll set now I'll try to enter very big data type details, and you can see it's entered. It's got covered because it's very large, but it will be stored. Otherwise, in case it shows these hash marks, it's because it's too large to show. But it gets saved. It will not give an error. So as you can see, indirectly I can set using these field size, these terminologies. But if it's a long integer, if it fits, it will be satisfactory for many purposes. Now here also I could set validation rules. Let's say basic pay cannot be lesser than 30,000. So I can set the rule greater than 30,000, and maybe it cannot exceed 50,000. It should be lesser. Means it should be about 30,000 but lesser than 50,000. So you can set lesser than equal to 50,000. So just add and in between. Click anywhere else. It will be recorded. Then you close it. Save. Again, it gives a warning that data rules may have changed. So as I've entered some amount of data, it gives a warning. So as I mentioned, always remember, even the empty values is considered to be some entry. Do not add any values until you are sure of whatever data you are entering till you enter the properties. So for basic pay, for example, if I add 60,000, it should give an error. And you can see again it gives an error. So enter now here, like for example, I can select 50,000. The first employee is got for the month of maybe Jan. The next month, the next month, maybe Feb, this employee gets a salary of maybe 49,000. So, and similarly, maybe 112 for the month of Jan, and I can enter 50,000 and so on. Maybe 112 for Feb, again, it could be maybe 45,000. So these are how these rules could be set. And again, I can add some informational error message here. So for validation rule, basic pay must be between rupees 30,000 and rupees 50,000. Click close, save. So this is one way we could do it. Now the important part of Microsoft Access is we want to create relations with the database tables. It's a relational database. In Excel, I cannot do this, but in Access, I can tell Access that this employee code is the same as the one here, even if I use a different name for it. So that if I do any queries, I want to ask questions to this database, it will know that this employee code in the employee details, which is also the primary key of this database, employee details. So, employee code in this table is the same as the one in salary. So for this, go to, first you can close these two tables. A lot of things do not work if this is not closed. Then go to database tools, click on relationships. Add both of the tables you are wanting to consider here. It could be more than one to which you add. Drag employee code here to here. If I want referential integrity means whatever employee code I am writing here must already be here. That means I cannot enter salary details of employee here, which is not in this table first. because that will be entering salary details for employee which is not in my records in this table. So I can enforce referential integrity, press create, and creates a relationship. As you can see, it's 1 to infinity sign it's showing. That's basically 1 to many, because one employee in each here has multiple records here, such as they have 111 as twice, 112 as twice, so and so on. So this is the important part too, which helps us when we're creating a database.